Salah is one of the most unique practices in Islam. And Salah is very different from the other practices that we normally do. Salah is different from zakat, it's different from hajj, and it's different from fasting. And one of the many ways in which Salah sets itself apart from the other injunctions is in the manner in how it was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. Every other injunction or practice or command in Islam was revealed from Allah, but through the medium of the angel Jibril alayhi salam. Allah would teach Jibril alayhi salam the injunctions, and then Jibril alayhi salam would descend from the skies, and he would then teach it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was the case for every single injunction in Islam except for Salah. Salah was so special that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't delegate the task to Jibril alayhi salam, but rather brought the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam into his very presence, in which Allah directly taught the practice of Salah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, this event happened during the miraculous journey called Isra and Miraj. Now, before going into the details of Isra and Miraj, I think it's important to kind of understand the context of what this journey is and how it occurred. So, Salah was revealed in this very unique manner in which no other injunction of Islam was revealed. And within Salah itself, it replicates the journey that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had during Isra and Miraj. In the journey of Isra and Miraj, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he not only physically ascended through the heavens, but his soul evolved and spiritually grew until it could meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and become very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why the scholars, they say that Salah is the Mi'raj of the believer. Salah is our own miniature way of having our own Mi'raj and coming close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And through practice and through repetition of the movements of Salah, by learning to train our mental focuses, we can strengthen our spirituality, strengthen our Iman, until we start to worship Allah as if we are seeing Allah or Allah is seeing us with this high level of consciousness. Now, the incident of Isra and Mi'raj is tied symbolically to our understanding and practice of Salah. But before going into the details of what this miraculous journey was, I think that it's very important to take a step back and contemplate the context in which this journey occurred. The Prophet ﷺ was preaching in Mecca for almost a decade by the time that the event of Isra and Miraj occurred. And this was a very tough period for the Prophet ﷺ. Very few people actually listened to his call. And the few that actually followed him were subject to immense torture at the hands of the enemies of the Prophet ﷺ, the Quraysh tribe. And it got really bad when the Quraysh jointly decided to take the Prophet ﷺ and his followers and kick them out of Mecca and boycott them altogether. And the Prophet ﷺ and his followers, they remained in this valley on the outskirts of Mecca, in which they endured 3 years of this boycott. During these 3 years, nobody from the Quraysh tribe was allowed to trade with them. Nobody was allowed to help them. Nobody was allowed to provide food for them. And the companions actually mentioned that one of the most difficult things during this time was to hear the cries of their own children from hunger during nighttime, because the companions couldn't afford to feed their children. This was very difficult for the Prophet ﷺ. On top of that, 2 major tragedies occurred in the life of the Prophet ﷺ during this very crucial period. The first was the death of his beloved uncle Abu Talib, who had practically raised the Prophet ﷺ from when he was a boy, and Abu Talib was no more. The second was the death of his beloved wife Khadija radiallahu anha. Remember that after the Prophet ﷺ had first received revelation from the Angel Jibril, he frantically descended from the cave of Hira in which this occurred, and he was nervous. He didn't know what was going on. And in this panicked state, it was his wife Khadija radiallahu anha who embraced him lovingly and soothed and calmed the Prophet ﷺ down. And Khadija radiallahu anha was a constant source of support for Rasulullah ﷺ throughout these 10 years or so. Now Khadija radiallahu anha was no more either, and this broke the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this very depressed state, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam decided to try another strategy, and he went to a city called Taif. He decided to try his luck there, but the people of Taif not only rejected his message, but they pelted him with stones, wounding him severely. In this context, in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is stressed, he is depressed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed this miraculous journey of Mi'raj. And in this journey, the Prophet ﷺ was woken up one day in Mecca by Jibril alayhi salam. And Jibril alayhi salam then took the Prophet ﷺ to the Kaaba. And from the Kaaba, Jibril alayhi salam then took the Prophet ﷺ to Masjid al-Aqsa, which is very far away in Jerusalem. In Masjid al-Aqsa, the Prophet ﷺ met the souls of many of the previous prophets. And from there, he ascended vertically. He went through each of the 7 skies that we Muslims believe exists. And in each sky, he met a separate prophet. And many events occurred. And after ascending the 7 skies, there was a point called the Sidratul Muntaha, which is a type of tree that the Prophet ﷺ crossed, but Jibril ﷺ was not allowed to go beyond that. Because as beloved and as mighty a creation Jibril ﷺ is, he's not superior to Rasulullah ﷺ, was only given permission to cross Sidratul Muntaha. And after a long time, he reached Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he met with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How this meeting occurred, we do not know the details. It's probably beyond the comprehension of our limited minds. What we do know and what we affirm is that he met Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he spoke with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. In this meeting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the action of salah. And it's a longer story regarding which we will make a separate video. But to make a long story short, the Prophet ﷺ received the salah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and its instructions and descended the 7 skies once again and came back to the companions. All of this happened within a blink of an eye. And it was a miraculous event. The Prophet ﷺ then taught the Sahaba radiallahu the procedure of how to pray salah. And the Sahaba were ecstatic. They were overwhelmed with joy because now they did not have to ask Rasulullah ﷺ constantly for their needs. In the past, the Sahaba would ask Rasulullah ﷺ to make dua for any of their needs. Now, Rasulullah ﷺ taught them that you can ask directly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for whatever you wish. And you can converse and present yourself directly to Allah through the medium of salah. Now, salah contains a lot of symbolism and is tied with the journey of Isra and Miraj. The idea behind salah is that just like how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he ascended the various levels, physically and spiritually, until he grew so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he was brought in the very presence and mercy of Allah. Likewise, if a believer were to pray salah properly with consistency, the actions of salah will impact his ruh, his soul, and his spirit in such a positive way that it will continue to grow until you become immensely close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yourself. This is what we call Wilayah or sainthood, when you become a friend of Allah. This is also known as the state of Ihsan. The state of Ihsan was described in this hadith by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he defined it by saying that it's to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with such focus that it's as if you are envisioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in front of you. And if you're not able to envision Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then at least to pray salah in such a manner that you are completely aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looking at you. It's a heightened sense of the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the point of salah is that just like how you build up that focus, that closeness that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam attained through the journey of Mi'raj, likewise, we practice that state, we grow it in our salah, and eventually, once we perfect it, we should be able to carry out the state of ihsan, this high level of taqwa, this high level of recognizing Allah's presence on to our aspects of life outside of salah as well. So the more that you pray your salah with concentration and focus, and the closer you grow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in salah, it will start to affect your dealings with your wife, your children, your parents, your business partners outside, the way that you control your anger. At any given moment, you will be aware of the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, thus you will conduct yourself accordingly. Another point to consider in the connection between the journey of Mi'raj and Salah is that just like how the Prophet ﷺ underwent a journey that transformed him, there are many narrations that mention that when he returned, the Prophet ﷺ was no longer the same person. His whole demeanor and mannerism had changed, and he had a renewed sense of purpose and direction. Likewise, if we can bring that level of focus in Salah, the idea behind this is that this will start to impact our lives outside of Salah as well. The more that you focus on the mercy and the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Salah, the more you will exhibit that in your day-to-day life as well. That presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you cultivate and you practice in Salah will find expression in the way that you communicate with your wife, the way that you communicate with your children and business partners, the way in which you communicate in times of anger or in times of depression, in times of joy, always with the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your heart. This is why many of our scholars actually calls Salah the Miraj of the believer. It's as if Salah is like a miniature version of Miraj for each and every one of us. Contemplate this miraculous event of Miraj carefully, and then try to replicate that same journey in your own miniature version of Miraj, which is your own personal Salah. This is the way that you will connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you will grow ever closer to Him. Make sure to like and subscribe for more advices on how to be a better Muslim, and always remember, keep it simple.